picture this room filled in a courtyard, an ocean of violets in bloom. Animals strike curious poses. They feel the heat between me and you. How can you just leave me standing alone in a world that's so cold, so cold? Maybe I'm just too demanding. Maybe I'm just like my father, too bold. Maybe you're just like my mother. She's never satisfied, she's never satisfied. Why do we scream at each other? This is what it sounds like when doves cry. Touch, if you will, my stomach. Feel how it trembles inside. You've got the butterflies all tied up. Don't make me chase you, even doves have pride. How can you just leave me standing alone in a world that's so cold, so cold? Maybe I'm just too demanding. Maybe I'm just like my father, too bold. Maybe you're just like my mother. She's never satisfied, she's never satisfied. Why do we scream at each other? This is what it sounds like when doves cry. This is what it sounds like when doves cry. I just made that up at the end. But I did have fun with the song. You know, I had fun with the campaign. And there were just a couple more stories I wanted to share because they deserve to stand out all by themselves. You know, one was on a trip to Madison. And I'm in the car, and I'm just outside Madison, and I'm thinking about the upcoming election. And of course, the idea of any election for a libertarian who's connected to reality is not that I'm going to win the election, but that I'm going to impact the conversation. And I just remember as I was on the road watching all these cars and looking at all the marketing signs and the political signs and the ads on the radio. And I thought to myself, how do you reach these people? How do you reach the masses? And over the years, it would occur to me that these ads were the answer to that question, which is to say, you have to do something novel. And as a third-party candidate who was vocal about marijuana legalization in every conversation I had, I was doing something novel in my campaign. And the fact of the matter was, I did that for just one reason. And that was, I was sitting and thinking about a strategy for the campaign. What do I want to really talk about? What do I want to make my main issues? And it occurred to me that Professor Rusk at the convention in 2013 had said to me, "Hey, Bob, let me tell you this story about marijuana legalization." And I realized that there was such a positive flow in America towards legalization that if what he had told me was true on top of that, then marijuana was a no-lose issue for me to stand on. And so I did. And in that, I discovered there was this novelty of these ads. But here's the thing. At the time, I was actually slightly pressured, if you will, by members of the party who went, "This just looks like we endorse marijuana. And we don't endorse marijuana. We just endorse the right of free people to use marijuana." Yeah, no, I got that. And so I corrected the message and said on, TV, I don't connect with the message. And I don't know, get Burke, get blazed. Do I connect with the idea of getting absolutely blazed?
Get Burke. Get blazed.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to get high and you really want to have a party time with some friends, yeah, no, crack out the bong and rip hard and enjoy yourself. And in a libertarian world and Bob world, right? I don't care, unless of course you forget to invite me. And so, that year when I did the Harvest Fest March in the first weekend in October, as the candidate, I had a sign that asked, "Who's high?" Because at the time, the national debt was like 18 trillion or something like that. I'm going to dig that picture out. I'll throw it up here. Because today, the national debt is like 31 or 32 trillion dollars. It's so unbelievably off the charts, and just 9 years later, it's nearly doubled. And so, oh no, it's more than double. Well, yeah, nearly doubled, if not doubled already. And it was a moment many years later when I looked back and I went, oh my gosh, yeah, get Burke, get blazed. Freedom, the flame, if you will, that flame of love is about allowing the people around us to be who they are and who they can be. Andy Hall did a very genuine tribute in his last Thunderbolts video to Wal Thornhill. And in it he said, a good friend is someone you can not only tell some bad news to, but you can tell good news to. Or maybe it was you can tell good news to. And a real friend is someone you can tell bad news to. That's what it was. And a really good friend won't tell you about bad things that have happened to them. They'll be in the moment and allow you to have, the comfort that someone else is there and understands the bad things that happen in life. And so when we look at marijuana legalization, all this bad shit, it was just really positive that we could talk about it in this campaign like it hadn't been. And so this leads me into the second story, which was that I went to a Milwaukee event, a community group, African-American community group in Milwaukee for a morning. I think it was a Sunday morning. And it was a really unique experience. But not just was it unique, it was an opportunity to experience just for a moment what it would be to have a political conversation in that market, if you will. And I employed a tool that I had learned, or taken away rather, from the listening session, right? And I talked about this briefly. I said, I'd talk about this later. Well, we're here later. I sat in the listening session on heroin at the, Rep Knudsen video. And the mistake I had made was that I didn't listen. And I should have, because had I listened, I'd have gotten up at the end and I would have told everyone at the table that the only conversation we should be having right now is the conversation that we need more money for more treatment. And I have an idea, there's actually a better treatment. And I waited as they allowed, hey, who wants to speak next? Who wants to go next? Who wants to go next? And so I waited to go last. And I got up. I had, I think, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and I spoke on a number of things. But I also finished. I said, someday you people will understand that the number one voter suppression, because this meeting was very about get out the vote. The number one voter suppression of the African American community in America are the felonies. And, these people, they get locked up in jail. And you go, hey, Bob, hold on. No. After they do all their time, they can start voting again. No, that's not the point. They're not going to vote again. You put them in fucking handcuffs and you threw them in a jail cell. And you literally forgot about the most important part of the story of that person's life, which was that they needed love. And they needed someone who could stop for a moment and say, why are we having these issues? Why, And as I said that, two guys in the back of the room erupted when I said, and the number one tool is marijuana, prohibition. I'm going to legalize it. Not only was I going to legalize it, but if something novel had really happened and I'd been elected, I had promised to expunge, to pardon all victimless, nonviolent marijuana charges. And as I think of it now, I'd probably go further. And I got a lot of things I'd get rid of. Because we do so much damage with all of these victimless crimes. And, instead of asking, why is someone driving 90 miles an hour down the road? We say we have to stop that person and we have to start ticketing them. And we have, there's a problem. And we want to deal with the problem and not just with the violence that we create to deal with the problem. The third little story is that when I began closing up the election and I was looking for what I was going to do next, I'd continue to write all the way through the election. Yeah, this goes through July, and then the next book is up. And then as I got towards the end, I decided, I'm going to reach out because I'd been listening to some podcasts. I was going to reach out to Mike Clellan. Mike wrote a book that was published by Richard Dolan called Messengers. And he had a number of very synchronous experiences with owls, and then other experiences with synchronistic lost time and such. And Mike's story is really important, so I'm going to tell his whole story in the next video. But, I was closing up the election trying to decide, after I'd created all this mess in my life, what was I going to do next? And the answer was, I was going to continue to write, and I was going to continue to research, and I was going to continue to look for answers to why I was having so many odd synchronicities in my life. Like this one, that I couldn't explain at the time. It just seemed odd. So in June, I worked at the Midwest Renewable Energy Association Fair in Custer, Wisconsin. The Libertarian Party had a booth there. I had a big poster, and I asked people if they wanted to sign my poster. My poster had a simple message: put Robert Burke in the debates. I'd take pictures of the poster and I'd post it on Facebook and other media, and at least gave a reason to have a conversation with people about how poorly integrated new ideas are into the election. And then if you wanted, I had two big signs as well. One said, I support marijuana legalization, and one said, I support hemp legalization. I did a video on Wisconsin and its place in the war on drugs. Listen, we needed hemp back in our economy years ago, decades ago. It should have never been gone to begin with. And it's just incredible that I'm at this event and I'm doing these signs and I'm doing this poster. And you know a lot of people in your life. I knew a lot of people growing up. I didn't see anybody from my hometown that I met at the fair. And there's thousands of people that come through. Now that doesn't mean that someone has to have been, but I did meet one person from my high school. And that was a gentleman by the name of Mr. McGuire. So I'm standing at the booth, I'm doing the signings, guy walks up, I'm like, man, he looks familiar. And I said, hey, would you like to sign my board? I'm Bob Burke, I'm a libertarian, I'm running for governor, I've been excluded. And he says, oh, no, he says, I won't do any good. He says, I'm not from the state. I says, oh, well, where are you from? And he says, no, I'm here on vacation. He says, I live in Michigan. Oh, really? That's great. Okay, I love Michigan. He says, I'm just retired there. He says, I grew up in Illinois. Ah, where'd you grow up in Illinois? And he says, we're from Illinois. And he says, I lived in Hinsdale for many years. He says, I taught school in Hinsdale. And then he says, I said, oh, I grew up in Plainfield. He goes, oh, I taught high school in Plainfield for 1 year. And this was the teacher my junior year who did the second semester of algebra that passed me. It took me 3 different semesters to pass algebra. I started in algebra my freshman year, and they bumped me back to pre-algebra. I was in algebra my sophomore year, and I passed the first semester and failed the second. And so my junior year, I had to retake the second semester of algebra in the second semester. And Mr. McGuire was only there for 1 year, and that was when I took him in class. Crazy stuff, right there at the fair. I'm really grateful for all the people that I met and all the experiences that I had when I was at that. You know, folks would come up and say, "Hey, Bob, what would the first thing be that you would do for us, to help the renewable energies?" So the first thing I would do is I'd get rid of subsidies so I can figure out whose stuff works. And then the second thing that I did, third, fourth, there was a booth there for the Native American tribe, I believe down in Madison, the Ho-Chunk. And I spent a fair part of an afternoon sitting and chatting with the guy. I got indignant as one gentleman came in and he wanted to buy one of the t-shirts and he was haggling it for half price. I bought a t-shirt. And I wore it for many years. In fact, I began using it for painting because shirts like that deserve to get worn. And as I sat with the gentleman, I don't remember when or why I said it. But I did. I said, look, if I were governor, I would allow back in your traditions and I'd bring back medicine. And he said, don't say that. I'm only talking about the freedom to heal with medicine from the earth. And again, years later, it occurred to me, why would I have ever said that? Why would I ever even introduce the idea? And the answer is found in the experiences like the one I had with Maz last Friday night. It's found in the experiences of Mr. McGuire and Charlie and Charlie's grandson, Zion. It's found in the homes of the apartments that I manage. It's found in the people that I've known. And I'm grateful. And for all those people, I'm asking you, someday, have faith. Have faith that you can help me spread hope like fire.